Yes, I can see it now. Yeah, brilliant.
Okay, perfect. So we'll just go and recap on some of the things we went through in part one.
Yeah.
So we talked about package main and the fact there are packages within Go. Um, Generally speaking, we're using main for most things, but if we develop our own packages that we want to reuse for some other purpose, then we can obviously create our own packages. Then we talked about the import statements. Now, on the previous example, I didn't have, apart from FNT, I didn't import anything else. But for this sort of embellishment on what we did previously, I've got some more packages now. So you'll notice we've got the JSON package and
Mm.
the YAML package.
Where is, oh,
So
YAML. What is that log thingy at the third?
our log is basically for logging.
Okay, got
So
it.
we're doing
Yeah,
some logging because we might have errors, and we're going to show you a bit of the error handling that I was talking about in part one.
cool.
Um, so so that's that. Then we've got the struct, and now I've added in all the tags onto the struct, including on the status one. I've just created a new field. I've called it status, and I've got a omit empty on there, just to kind of show that if there isn't anything in that field, then it won't
I-
get it won't get rendered into the struct with a sort of empty field. It just won't appear at all.
Ignore, basically. Ignore.
Yes. Then I've got my data as before, but as it mentions here in the comments, status field is omitted intentionally to demonstrate omit empty.
Hmm.
I'm then going to serialize um, the the data within this struct that I've initialized. So I've initialized this struct here, and actually I should explain that when you initiate variables in Go, there's several different ways to do that. You can explicitly define what it is. So you can say, I want to do uh, a var, a variable with type integer or float 64 or float 32. So you can be very explicit and say this is the variable type that I'm looking for, string, or you can just let it implicitly work out what it is, which is what I've done here. So this colon equals, some people call it the Walrus operator, is a way of assigning this data within this struct that I've just initialized to this variable called router.
I didn't understand. Is it
Okay.
like the double equal to sign that you do in Python, that we assign this value to this variable? Is it the, what does the colon does there?
Um, no, it's not quite the same because double equals in Python would be like a conditional statement, like an if
Yeah,
statement. This
yeah.
is this is variable assignment. So all this is saying is it's assigning this data or this struct, because this
Hmm.
is a struct. The struct is called router,
Hmm.
and that's all the contents of the data within the
Okay.
struct. And I'm assigning that to this variable called router in
Okay.
lowercase.
Okay. And the format is the quotes and the equal to sign. Sorry, the the two dots and the equal to sign. That's a format, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Well, no, it's implicitly telling Go to you work out what this is. You
Okay.
know, you
Hmm.
work out what data type this or what type this is that we're referring to.
Oh.
I'm not explicitly declaring it because I could do this. I could do something like this var router,
Hmm.
and then I could do something like router,
Hmm.
and then I'd be saying I want this. This is the type I want. Yeah. Or I could do var router string, something
Okay.
like that,
Got it.
which would then
Okay.
say, I'm expecting a string. But you don't need to do that if you don't want to. You can just say, you know, this is what I want. So you could also do something like this. You could have age colon equal 10, let's say.
Hmm.
Well, you can see from that that's going to be an integer,
Yeah.
but you're telling Go that's an integer. You're saying work out what that is. That's
Oh.
enough.
So this is something I've not seen in Python, that you let the code decide what value or what type a certain value is going to be.
Well, you do kind of in Python, don't you? Because what you can do is you could do something like age equals 25. You could do that in Python, and
Yeah.
Python know that that's a string because you
Yes.
put
Yes.
random quotes. So
Yes.
you
You're
can
right.
do the same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. 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 That's good.
So the benefit of doing it this way is just that this is less, by using this like implicit assignment, it's less verbose in terms of code. So you don't
Mhm.
need like first of all tell it what it is,
Mhm.
then assign something to it.
Sure.
You don't have to do that.
Got it. Yeah.
Um, so it's a lot easier from that perspective. So it's kind of got the sort of friendliness that Python's got, which is it lets you do this.
Mhm.
The next bit I'm going to do is I'm serializing this struct into JSON. So you see here I've got this thing called Marshall,
Mhm.
JSON Marshall.
Mhm.
And marshalling, all it is just like taking some data and putting it into JSON, basically
Mhm.
marshalling it.
Mhm.
And this bit here is all around the indentation because I want it to be human readable, human friendly type readable format.
Mhm.
So that's what this is doing here. It's trying to format the indentation of the JSON.
Yeah. I see. Because normally you put indent equals 4 and the other things in. I remember doing that in Ansible. You define indent equals 4, but you just define this. Okay.
Yep.
Sure.
And then you've got the error handling bit. So when you do this marshalling um, function or method, what you're trying to do is it's very defensive in terms of error handling because what you're saying is if there is an error happens as a result of that operation, then I'm going to handle it. Otherwise, I'm going to panic, which we mentioned in part one. So that's what this says: is if the error is not equal to nil,
Mhm.
i.e., if there is an error, if something goes into this error variable, then log it.
I
Just
see.
say failed to marshal JSON or whatever message you want, and then the error.
Sure.
That's what this is
Yeah.
doing. So
Okay. If
um,
error is not equal to nil, so log whatever error value you got and just report
got
an error back. Got it. Yeah.
Yes. So that's going to be your end user. Imagine that a user was obviously realistically not going to use this because it's just a kind of
Yeah.
playground thing. But if they were using this application, you want to tell them what's wrong in a kind of friendly way, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's what that's for.
Sure.
Then we're going to print the output of the JSON.
FMP.
Well, first of all, we're going to print a title that says just JSON. Then we're going to print the JSON underneath.
Cool.
And then we're doing the same with the YAML. We're doing exactly the same. We're marshalling the YAML. We're taking the router struct, the data in the router struct, and we're marshalling that into YAML,
Mm-hmm.
and we're handling the error. Okay, so that all looks, good to go,
Yes.
and it should work. But there's a few things we haven't done here.
Mm-hmm.
So let me just sort of run this and show you that it's not going to work. Okay, so I've got a terminal window down here.
Mm-hmm.
And so to run this program, the file is obviously main.go. So we would do something like go run main.go, right, to run this, execute this program.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's come up
Yeah.
and it said, hang on a minute, the YAML package is
Mm-hmm.
not found. And there's the reason for this is because what I've not done here, and I've done it on purpose, is I've not created I've not initialized this at all, and basically it doesn't have any reference to the YAML package and where it's stored or anything. So the first thing we've got to do is we've got to initialize this repository. So to do that, you do go mod space init, then the name of the repository that you. Now this is normally the GitHub
Yeah,
repo.
that reminds me of GitHub, correct? Yes.
But it's doesn't have to be. It could just be. But normally it is because you remember what I mentioned about PyPy and package managers being a requirement in Python. In Go, they're not. So what I would do typically for this, I would do something like github.com, then my handle on GitHub, which is gwoodwa1, and then the name of the repo that I was going to call it, and I'd call it something, I don't know, we'll call it demo,
Yeah.
demo, something like that. Yeah. So if I do that, do you notice up here, it's now created this Go mod file
Hmm.
automatically. So let's
Yeah.
open that up, and you can see the module that I've created is called github.com/gwoodwa1/demo, and it's using Go version 1.20.
Yeah.
Perfect. So that's done,
Hmm.
but it's not quite done because the YAML package that we're using has not been installed.
Hmm.
So to do that, we can do that several ways. You can do like a go get and then the name of the package.
Yeah.
But the real simple, easy way is to get all the heavy lifting done for you. Is just use go mod tidy. Oh,
Ah.
sorry, I've just
Yeah.
typed in the wrong
You
window.
you you mentioned in part one we could use Git clone.
No, not exactly, because this is. I was explaining that when you install a package, it does a Git clone
I see.
basically down to
I
your
see.
local machine.
Okay.
But you don't actually use git clone to install the packages. You let the Go application handle all that for you.
Hmm. Okay.
So I'm going to do go mod tidy.
Mm-hmm.
And what this does, it'll look in my main package, find all the modules
Mm-hmm.
that I'm using,
Hmm.
and automatically install them.
Oh, wow.
So
Found something. Yeah.
it found the YAML package and it's just installed it. So now
Nice.
what we've done is we've we've stopped all these problems with the YAML package not being imported. We've initialized a new module.
Hmm.
So now when we run main.go, this will
Mm-hmm.
work.
Nice.
Oh, if I get into the right window, go run main.go. There we go. It worked.
Wow.
So where we have our JSON printed out,
Yes.
and then there's our YAML printed out as well.
Excellent.
Just a very simple example. But if you look at
Wow.
what we did, I mean, we kind of did the steps in reverse. I mean, what we should have done really is we should have done the Go mod in it at the start,
I see.
and then we should have you know done the Go mod tidy, and then we should have run our program. But I did it in the wrong way around on purpose to show you what happens if
Mm-hmm.
you do it the wrong way around. The other thing we could also do is build a binary.
Hmm.
So now let's say we want to package this. I want to package up this really cool program that I've created,
Hmm.
and I want to give it to you, Dewey, for your machine. I can do a go build. I don't know if this will work because this is a sandbox I'm using here, but you would do something like go build main.go, which would create a binary, but I'm not sure if this is going to work. It did work, did it?
It did
Yeah.
work. Yeah. I saw just a file pop up.
Yeah, so the file's
Yeah.
called main. So that's now an executable file that you could use. In fact, I don't know if we can actually run it.
Hmm.
Can we run it? Let's give it a go.
Yeah.
So if I do /main, will it run? It does. What do
Wow.
you know? So now you've
Yeah.
got that executable. I could give that executable to you. And if you had this is probably a Linux, I guess, some sort of Linux operating system. It
Hmm.
will obviously compile into the operating system that you're using.
Hmm.
So if you're on Linux, it will give you a Linux binary.
Hmm.
I could give you that file, share
Hmm.
that with you.
Hmm. Yes.
and you could use it.
Nice.
And you wouldn't see any of the source code. All you'd have is that's compiled C file to
Hmm.
play with.
So that's brilliant. So that's and that's really good. So yeah, so the language is so the concepts are the same. You have the same data structures, JSON, YAML, but the approach is different. The format is different, and the structure of the language is different.
Yes, and error handling is
Error
different as
handling.
well.
Hmm,
Yeah,
that's
I
good.
mean, you could do the same script obviously in Python, so it's not. This is not a sort of golden ticket for how you would use Go,
Hmm,
because what we're doing here is something just equivalent you could do in Python. So we wouldn't say, oh, by the way, you can do this in Go,
hmm,
but you can't do this, but you can.
hmm,
But where the interesting bits come in is where you're starting to use concurrency to
hmm,
achieve things. Um, and you want to provide the other use case is CLI apps. If you want to develop CLI apps for users, this
hmm.
is really the best tool for that, because like we've just seen there, we've compiled a binary and I can give you that binary and you can use it.
Hmm.
So I think that's another really big plus for it.
Brilliant, brilliant. So that's great demo, and you've certainly inspired me to learn Golang. So now, in terms of the next steps, where do I go from here? Do you have any links or resources that I can use to further enhance my knowledge?
Yeah, there's some very useful. There's so many books obviously out there, and YouTube and courses, etc. There's some really, in fact, there's so many that there's too many to name.
Hmm.
But I would say there is a book called Network Automation with Go.
Hmm.
It's by Packet Publishing. That's a very, very good book for network automation using Go. It has some very, very good examples in there. I would say, though, that you probably want to look at the Free Code Camp YouTube videos to kind of get the sort of language basics before you read that book or go into that book, because it is a very, very good book. It cannot cover the detail of the basics um, as well as a more generic book or course. So I'll give you the links, Dewey, and you can pop them in on the video. But I mean, basically, there's so much material out there to learn it, and there's some decent courses and free ones and paid ones.
Hmm.
Um, there is one that I actually particularly like, which is the full-time Go Dev course, and that's absolutely awesome. But it's a paid for course, but it is teaches you everything from the ground up, but not only just the language, but also the design aspect for Go as well. It's a really, really great course, and it's got a Discord community, and it's the one I would recommend the most um, for learning sort of Golang. Um, so yeah, we'll pop those links in the description,
That would
and
be super useful. Thank you. In terms of job opportunities, I mean, just for knowledge, not that we are actively looking for job, but what is the job opportunity? What is the market condition for people who have this skill set?
well, it's huge. Um, it's very much in demand. Go as a language because it's very versatile. It applies to lots of different areas: microservices, web APIs, network automation. Um, it's used in lots of different places. So there are many, many job opportunities, and I think there's a kind of dearth of people with networking skills and also skills within Go
Hmm.
as well. So I think sort of like Go on its own is very, very great from a job market perspective, but I think having the network skills plus the Go is kind of probably the ultimate, and there are many opportunities out there. So I think it's definitely worth learning from that perspective. But I would say, like anything, it's like if you enjoy it, if you like it, and you start to play with it, and you think, you know, I quite like this language. I actually really enjoy it, and I think it's going to make me a better Python developer as well.
Mm.
I think that's the main sort of goal that you should have.
Mm.
But the job market is great, and you'll find plenty of opportunities with these skills. So highly recommend it. And not every company organization uses Python. Some of them just purely Go. So obviously they'll only consider taking you on if you've got Go skills exclusively. So I
Mm.
really do think it's a bright future for Go. I've heard all the talk about Rust as well, but I think for me, the one I'm most comfortable with is Go, and
Mm.
that's the one I'm back in, because I think it is, it's an awesome language to learn, so many resources, such a great community. So there's no reason not to use
Mm.
it and
Yes.
start using it.
Brilliant, Gary. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. We really appreciate. And we'll see you on the next call, hopefully discussing a new topic or a new subject regarding automation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dewey. It's been great to be with you.
Likewise. Take care. Cheers.
Thank you.